my years as a police officer, I've handled everything from petty thefts to volatile domestic disputes, building a resilience that keeps most cases from lingering in my mind. But some incidents defy explanation, burrowing deep into your thoughts and refusing to let go. One such case began on an unremarkable Wednesday evening. Just as my shift was winding down, the radio crackled to life with a call from dispatch about a man, let's call him Mark Davies to protect his identity, who reported strange noises in his attic. Footsteps, he said, pacing above his bedroom. He'd already investigated himself, finding nothing, but the sounds persisted, and he wanted an officer to check it out. These calls are typically routine, often handled by patrol, but I was nearby and decided to take it. At worst, I thought, I'd be shooing away a curious raccoon or calming a nervous homeowner. Mark's house was a picture of suburban normalcy. A neatly trimmed lawn, a mailbox with his name in crisp white letters, and a porch light casting a warm glow. Mark greeted me at the door, a fit man in his late 40s, dressed in a pressed shirt and slacks. His demeanor was polite, but tinged with unease, his eyes darting toward the ceiling as he spoke. He explained that the footsteps had started a week ago, faint at first, but growing more distinct each night. He wasn't prone to paranoia, he insisted, but the noises were impossible to ignore. I asked the usual questions. Did anyone else live here? Could a guest or teenager be sneaking around? Mark lived alone, he assured me, and had checked every window and door multiple times. All were locked, secure. We made our way to the attic access, a pull-down ladder in the hallway that groaned under its own weight as Mark lowered it. The air grew heavy as I climbed, a stale, musty scent enveloping me. My flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing a cavernous attic with exposed wooden beams and clumps of insulation protruding like jagged teeth. Dust blanketed every surface, disturbed only by faint footprints trailing across the floorboards. My pulse quickened as I followed the trail, the beam of my flashlight trembling slightly in my grip. The prints led to a shadowed corner, partially obscured by a pile of dusty cardboard boxes. There, tucked into the darkness, was something I hadn't expected. A makeshift altar. A wooden crate, overturned, served as its base, surrounded by half-burned candles, their wax pooling in grotesque patterns. On the crate lay an unsettling collection, a bundle of what appeared to be animal bones, brittle and yellowed, a rusted iron key, its teeth worn smooth, and a photograph of Mark, its surface mutilated. His face had been scratched out with something sharp, the gashes deep and deliberate, as if carved in a fit of rage. My breath caught in my throat. This wasn't the work of a squatter or a prankster. This was something calculated, malevolent. I stood frozen, the weight of the discovery pressing against my chest. The attic felt suffocating, the air thick with an unnatural stillness. I called down to Mark, asking if he'd ever ventured up here or knew how his photo had ended up in this grim display. His voice, strained and disbelieving, echoed up the ladder. "That's impossible," he said. "I've never seen anything like that." He sounded shaken, and I couldn't blame him. I photographed the scene, my hands unsteady, and carefully bagged the items, hoping to ease his mind by removing the disturbing setup. But as I worked, a creeping dread settled over me, as if I were tampering with something that didn't want to be disturbed. I checked the attic thoroughly, searching for hidden entrances or loose panels, but found none. The windows were sealed, the walls intact. Whoever, or whatever, had been here had passed through the house undetected, slipping past locked doors and windows. It didn't make sense. Downstairs, Mark's face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. I reassured him it was likely a cruel prank, but my words felt hollow. I told him to call if he heard anything else, no matter how minor, and left him standing in his doorway, glancing nervously over his shoulder. Days passed, and I tried to push the case from my mind, filing the report and logging the evidence. But then Mark called again, his voice trembling through the receiver. "They're back," he whispered. "The footsteps. They're louder now." I returned to his house, the air thick with tension. Mark looked haggard, his eyes bloodshot, his hands fidgeting as he pointed to the ceiling. He'd heard the noises again, accompanied by faint whispers, like a voice murmuring just beyond comprehension. We climbed to the attic once more, but it was empty. The dust undisturbed. No new footprints. Yet the air felt oppressive, charged with an unseen presence that made my skin prickle. I told Mark we'd keep the case open, that we'd patrol the area, but my reassurances felt inadequate. As I drove away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered in that house, watching from the shadows. Weeks later, I received a call from the station. Mark had been hospitalized, found in his bed, barely conscious. His once robust frame was gaunt, his skin sallow. Doctors couldn't pinpoint a cause for his rapid decline, but I knew it wasn't just illness. That altar, those scratched-out eyes in the photograph, they haunted me. We launched a formal investigation, suspecting someone had targeted Mark, but no leads emerged. The case, unresolved, lingers in my mind, a chilling reminder that some threats defy explanation, lurking just beyond our understanding. In my 2 decades on the force, I've responded to countless welfare checks, usually for elderly residents whose neighbors or family grow concerned. Most are routine: a forgotten phone call, a hearing aid on the fritz. But one call, in the dead of night, was different. The dispatcher's voice was hushed, relaying a message from an elderly woman. Let's call her Mrs. Clara, who sounded terrified. "He's back," she'd said, refusing to elaborate on who he was, only insisting he appeared at her bedside each night, watching her. The urgency in her tone sent a chill through me, and I headed to her address immediately. Clara's home was a quaint bungalow, its garden blooming with roses, its windows framed with delicate lace curtains. She answered the door in a pale nightgown, her silver hair neatly pinned, but her eyes were wild, scanning the darkness behind me. "Thank you for coming," she whispered, her voice trembling. I didn't know who else to call. Inside, she led me to her cozy living room, where a single lamp cast long shadows across the walls. Her hands shook as she sat, clutching a crocheted blanket. "It's my husband," she said finally, her voice barely audible. "He passed 3 years ago, but he's been here every night this week, standing by my bed, just staring." I listened, keeping my expression neutral, though her words stirred an unease I couldn't place. Grief can manifest in strange ways, I reasoned, but the conviction in her eyes was unnerving. I asked gentle questions, probing for signs of confusion or loneliness, but she was adamant. "It's not my imagination," she said, her voice sharpening. "I know he's there, but it's not him, not the man I loved. It's different." Her words hung in the air, heavy with a fear that felt contagious. I offered to check the house, searching for signs of an intruder or anything that might explain her experience. The rooms were tidy, the windows locked, the air scented with lavender. In her bedroom, the bed was neatly made, a single rose-patterned pillow at its head. Nothing seemed out of place, yet the room felt colder, the silence oppressive. I reassured Clara that she could call me any time. But as I left, her gaze followed me, a mix of fear and resignation that gnawed at me. The next day, I couldn't shake the encounter. On a whim, I returned to check on her, only to find 2 officers already at her home. Clara was gone, found lifeless in her bed, her eyes wide open, frozen in an expression of terror or acceptance. I couldn't tell which. On her bedside table was a note in her shaky handwriting. "He's here for me now." The words sent a shiver down my spine. I stood in her bedroom, the air heavy as if something lingered just out of sight. The investigation found no foul play, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Clara had been right. Something, or someone, had come for her. Weeks later, driven by an unshakable need for closure, I returned to her house. It was empty, the air thick with the scent of her perfume. In her bedroom, the cold was palpable, a weight pressing against me. I stood by the bed where she'd seen her husband and felt it, a presence, unseen but undeniable, watching me. My heart raced and I fled, closing the door behind me as if to trap whatever lingered inside. I haven't returned since. Some things are better left undisturbed. As a corrections officer for 15 years, I've grown accustomed to the rhythms of the county jail. The sterile beige walls, the sharp scent of antiseptic, the monotony of the graveyard shift. The quiet suits me. The routine of rounds and monitor checks, a comfort in its predictability. But a few months ago, something disrupted that rhythm. Something I still can't explain. It was a Tuesday night just past 2 a.m. when I noticed it on the monitors. A dark shape moved slowly through Block C, drifting between cells. At first, I dismissed it as a glitch or a shadow from a passing car, but it didn't move like a shadow. It paced deliberately, pausing at each cell as if inspecting it. My stomach tightened. No one was supposed to be out at that hour. I grabbed my flashlight and headed to Block C, my boots echoing in the silent halls. The block was empty, the inmates asleep, the air still. I checked every cell, every corner, but found nothing. For a week, I convinced myself it was a trick of the mind, the result of too many late nights. But then it appeared again, around 3 a.m., moving with the same eerie deliberation. I returned to Block C faster this time, the air heavy with a faint musty odor, like old wood or decay. Again, nothing. No footprints, no signs of tampering. But the atmosphere felt charged, as if something lingered just beyond my sight. The incidents continued, the shadow appearing every few nights, always in Block C. Other guards shrugged off my questions, blaming fatigue or faulty cameras. But then the inmates started talking. A lanky prisoner, his voice low and urgent, asked if I'd seen the man. He described a shadowy figure standing by his bed at night, watching him. Others echoed his story, their descriptions chillingly consistent. A tall, featureless silhouette with hollow eyes, leaning over them as they slept. These were hardened men, unshaken by years in lockup, yet their fear was palpable. One night, it became personal. During my final round at 4 a.m., I felt it, the heavy air, the musty smell. At the end of Block C, I saw it, a dark shape, motionless, watching me. My flashlight flickered and it vanished. Back in the control room, the monitor showed it again, moving closer, stopping just outside the door. I froze, my heart pounding, feeling its presence through the glass. It faded eventually, but the dread lingered. I still see it sometimes, pacing Block C, and I wonder what it's searching for, and if it'll ever find it. Patrolling the cemetery at midnight wasn't my idea of a good time. but vandalism reports had spiked, and the department was short-staffed. I arrived under a thick blanket of fog, the headstones barely visible in the moonlight. The air was cold, damp, and heavy with an unnatural stillness. The old iron gate creaked as I passed through, the sound echoing like a warning. Flashlight in hand, I wove through the graves, my beam catching on weathered inscriptions and gnarled tree branches. The fog muffled every sound, amplifying my unease. I felt watched, as if something lurked just beyond my sight. Halfway through my patrol, I saw it. A flicker of movement in the mist. A human-shaped figure, thin and shadowy, glided between the headstones. "Hey!" I called, my voice swallowed by the fog. "This area is off limits." No response. The figure moved on, its gait slow, almost floating. I followed, my pulse racing, but when I reached the spot, it was gone. The fog thickened, my flashlight struggling to penetrate it. I pressed on, driven by duty and a stubborn need to know. The sense of being watched grew stronger, faint footsteps echoing behind me. I spun around but saw only graves. Then I saw it again, closer now, standing motionless, facing me. Its form was indistinct. No face, no eyes, yet I felt its gaze. I called out again, stepping forward, but it slipped behind a headstone and vanished. My nerves screamed to leave, but I searched the area, finding nothing. The air grew colder, the fog suffocating. As I neared the gate, a whisper cut through the silence. "Leave." I didn't look back, hurrying to my car, my hands trembling as I drove away. I requested no more cemetery patrols, and thankfully my supervisor didn't press. Something was out there that night. Something I don't want to understand. Some places are better left alone.